Okay. All right. So I'm continuing this morning. Welcome. Nice to see you all on the topic of ambition, which Nelly and I started yesterday. And it came out of a piece of writing that we did. And I was thinking about it, mulling over our conversation yesterday, but also I had been listening to a podcast by Ezra Klein. He's a political analyst and journalist, and he made a statement about Kamala Harris, the U.S. Democratic presidential candidate. And I found it interesting in relation to the topic. So he said about her, rather than fighting power, she has spent her time becoming powerful. And it just kind of clicked because just yesterday in the writing, as we talked about it, I brought in the chain of dependent arising, a Buddhist teaching on conditionality and how things come to be in relation to other things. And becoming is a link on that chain. And it's also linked to desire and ambition, I would even say, that they're intertwined. Our desires are linked with who we become and what gets born. So in this respect, I was thinking about becoming powerful, this phrase, becoming powerful. And I have a gist of what that means in politics, but what does it mean for us in reflective meditation? And power has often gotten regulated to the material or secular world. And in spiritual and religious worlds, power often goes underground. It's not addressed explicitly. It's hidden, it's masked. In fact, I really felt like I gravitated towards spiritual practices early in my life because I expected people to have less ambition for power. But in the past decade, I've really come to more fully understand that it was that I was more used to being in the company of people that didn't speak of power directly. And so we all enacted it much more unconsciously. So this is where desire and ambition and power all get tricky. Not the only place, mind you. But trying to get a fast pass, like on Disneyland, fast pass through our desires for things we should not desire, it seems to backfire. And in many translations of the Buddhist teachings, desire is the main problem. It's often, pointed to as what is should be eliminated and what turns into craving and blindness. So this makes me think, does the desire for or ambition for power, is it like a double negative, like really highly dangerous? But I want to bring in power in a few different ways to look at it in a more broad definition. Powers are considered strengths in Buddhism. We just taught a retreat on the 5 powers, and we look at confidence or faith as a power, energy as a power, mindfulness as a power, concentration and wisdom. Both are also considered powers. And in our book, we talk about power as the ability to act. But we also say it's an explosive and potent topic. It has a lot of energy for good as well as harm. And it's typically ignored in many sanghas. It's considered outside of Dharma teaching often, power. And it has a privileged place in that most people don't want to touch it because they might get burned. Now, another source that I like to quote is Julie Diamond, and she wrote a book, Power, a User's Guide. Talks about how to use power wisely. And she has a tagline that says, power corrupts absolutely, but not inevitably. So it seems to me that ambition and power can ride in the same stream. They're like, cousins. And I'll use Julie's word here, but they act the same, but not inevitably. There's ways that they can go differently, both power and ambition. Ambition can be a motivator that can help us grow and learn and discover and achieve great things. Advances in science, technology, medicine often come from ambitions that people have to change the world, to achieve their goals. But I had to think a little bit more about, okay, so why am I kind of going in this power ambition direction? It's really that I want to talk about it. I don't want to not talk about it, because that's what we did with power, and it left a lot of problems within a group of people and how to use power wisely and power as strength. So I want to look at it in context while I'm still able to do so. And while I'm still curious about us, about the world, about how and why we act the way we do. Because truthfully, as we age, I notice that this curiosity can often decline in some of the people that I know that don't have a practice to try to enliven and invigorate curiosity. And also, as we age, some of our ambition and our desires, they naturally decline, even without a practice. Some of those just wane, though some of them still roar like a lion. Some of those desires and ambitions, they don't give up easily. And that's so interesting, which ones and why, and which ones are still activated for us. As we age, our ability to act also decreases. Though I could say the same thing, some acts still roar. So this is why, in my opinion, meditation is such a good friend to take into old age. And Sylvia Boorstein, and she's the founder of Spirit Rock and one of the, a really beautiful, good, highly acknowledged, I'll say, Buddhist teachers. She coined a phrase that I really like. Don't just do something, sit there. And I'll fill it out with her words. This is an interview that she gave. And I'll end with this little bit from her. I went on a book tour to a number of cities on the West Coast. One of my interviewers was a talk show radio host whose political stance was altogether different than mine. As I sat next to her, sharing a microphone in the middle of an open-air studio, I'm now sharing it with a plane overhead, if you can hear that, in an open-air studio in a shopping center, she reviewed the headlines of the day's news before including me in the conversation. Her presentation was, in my view, this is Sylvia, in my views, inflammatory. After she introduced me, her first question was this: well, you've heard what I've been telling my listeners. It's up to them to make a difference. Go out to City Hall, talk to your legislators, get on school boards, make a difference. And you, Sylvia Boorstein, are telling people, don't just do something, sit there. What do you have to say for yourself? And she says, I said, I could not agree with you more. Absolutely. Each of us is obligated to make a difference. Act when we see something that needs to be done. I'm suggesting that it is valuable to be still for long enough to figure out what would be the most helpful thing to do. I'll end my talk here. Thank you for listening, and we'll do our practice together.